Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to 2CTV, your global news channel. I'm Maya 2C, and we have some more breaking news coming from Syria as the situation on the ground in the southwestern parts of the country is escalating over the last hour or so. We received a number of weird updates. One was that al-Jawlani's Syrian regime, Islamist regime, decided to announce that they're going to be fully take over Al Suwaida and all the other areas in the southwest. Some of the leaders, of course, are not happy about this. The Israeli defense forces have continued their counter-terrorism operation in both Damascus and, of course, in the south. We still have this ongoing chaos by the Israeli-Syrian border. This is a live feed that we have. A number of Druze Israelis are still trying to cross the border from Israel into Syria. Of course, the Israeli Prime Minister and the Israeli government have advised them not to do this because obviously they're putting their own lives at risk and they're making things complicated for the IDF. But to explain exactly what's going on now, because obviously we've done a couple of updates for you guys as we speak, we are going to be joined now by a very, very special guest. Someone who actually has a lot of experience in terms of knowing exactly what's been going on to this community, to the Druze, for such a long time. A former IDF officer and member of the Special Forces, a Druze Israeli, who also told me to say he's trying to find the perfect D&D party. I'm gonna actually explain that and ask him. Hello, Mansour. Mansour Ashkar is joining us. Well, first time we're having you on the channel. I don't know if I should say unfortunately, because it's a bit of a chaotic situation, obviously, on the ground for a lot of the Druze in Syria. But also, obviously, everybody in the region right now, because the instability in the country is going to be affecting a lot of other people. First things first, tell us about obviously what you've been doing today, because I'm guessing you've been busy with all this stuff, right?
Yeah, well, first I didn't think you're gonna say the D&D party part, but you got me with that one. I
Yep,
need to be
yep.
careful with you. Um, I've just finished. This is my fifth podcast today, back to back. I told the Jews in Syria, my family, and the people that I'm talking in the front line and in the houses defending their families that I'm gonna use everything that I have to be a voice for them, while
Yep.
mainstream media is not covering them. And
Yes.
when they do cover, they cover it very, very wrongly. So thank you for giving this chance with a huge platform to come and share the voice for them.
I appreciate it.
It's crazy, man. Things are going so crazy so fast. We might be witnessing the fall of the Jawlani regime, the Syrian regime again. This might be
Again,
the beginning.
but that's the thing. So on this channel, when the Assad regime fell, I started to talk a lot more about the Druze and also obviously the other civilians like Christians and others in the south. So a lot of people on 2CTV and many others who were watching mainstream media didn't actually know who the Druze were. And some people might still not know who they are. Can you explain to people who your people are and why they're in this mess in the first place?
So yes, the Druze is a very small minority. There's less than 1.5 million of us in the world. The majority of them are living in Syria and in Lebanon and in Israel. The only place that they're, and some in Jordan, but the only place that they're actually freely practicing their religion as Druze is in Israel. In the rest of the places, they're forced to live under taqiyya, which is kind of hiding their identity and pretending to be Muslims just so they don't get killed and don't get their daughters stolen from them.
Yep.
And the Druze in Syria, after the fall of Assad regime, were stuck between. Assad was evil towards everyone. Give him the credit; he was fair to everyone. He was just pure evil towards everyone.
Yep.
And when that happened, the Druze realized that's it. There's no more. If there was a slight protection towards them, there's no more, because Syria, in their eyes, was taken by Al Qaeda and ISIS. Now I know the
Yep.
West was trying to believe that Jawlani might, he wore a suit and he shaved his beard a little bit and he looks like a hipster now, so he's probably a nice guy. But the people in Syria, Christians and Jews and minorities, were very, very afraid because they have a track record, Olympic track record of being a terrorist. So far, he was ISIS, he was Al Qaeda, he jumped ship and he created his own version of it. And then the government started demanding that the Jews in Syria hand out their weapons. And El Hijri, which is the sheikh leader of the Druze, came and
Yep.
said, sorry, we're not handing our weapons. We want to see proper democratical elections in Syria and to see that there's a leadership that is representing the Syrians. And many Muslims, by the way, not many, but some actually said, yeah, we want that. The ones that want actually a good future.
They're middle
But
classes, yeah, yeah.
the middle
Yeah.
class is exactly the one that is fed up with this murder that is happening on their people. And then Jawlani started working and plotting on declaring the Druze as a terrorist organization so he can go and disarm them.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, arming the real terrorists, giving them weapons and demanding. The Druze said, no, we're not going to fall for this trick. That worked in Haybari ya Yahud, that worked in the Jews in the times of Muhammad, but it's not going to work on us here. We're not going to fall. We're not going to give our weapons because we know what you're going to do. We saw what you did to the Alawite and the Christians.
Yes.
And since then, there's been tension and they've been looking for excuses, and it all sparked when they attacked a convoy of a Druze businessman and some humanitarian food and vegetables and aid that was going to the Sueda. For those who don't know, Sueda is the main province of the Druze in Syria. It's a mountain that
Yeah.
have most of the Druze in Syria, and that's most of the Druze in the world, by the way.
Yep.
And the Bedouins have been sieging on them, the Muslim Bedouins, and attacking them, looting them, kidnapping them. And they've been going on and forth. They kidnap the Druze go and kidnap some of their people, and then they exchange and release. And the last skirmish that they had with the announcements that came by the United States of America that said that they're removing the sanctions from Syria and they're actually seeing a true partner for maybe peace by Jawlani, that gave, I think, that's what the Druze in Syria is saying, that gave the regime there the feeling that they're actually now safe to go and act against the minorities and declare them as terrorists, and the West will support them because they're trying to control the country. But in fact, what they did is they start mobilizing tanks,
Yep.
heavy artillery, Grad missiles. These are like serious Russian missiles. Why do you need that when you go into a village? And then followed by them, a lot of people with flags of ISIS and Daesh. And Israel made it very clear back then to Jawlani, stay away from our border. Don't bring your tanks or your jihadists to our border or we'll take them down. So they were watching this very clearly. And then we saw what happened, the clashes and the killing, and it intensified and it moved very quickly. It went south really fast to beheading people, murdering children and women in the streets, driving cars over dead bodies of religious figures, shaving their beards, Holocaust style. And that's when Israel decided to step in because they made a promise that they're going to defend the minority, the Druze predominantly, but also other minorities in Syria. And they stepped in and started, launching airstrikes on them.
Yeah. But I mean, right now, obviously you are an Israeli citizen and you did serve in the IDF and everything else. But because you're Druze, you have relatives and people you might know in Syria, right? Can you explain in terms of what is the situation? Are you in touch with them? Do you know who they are? What's going on? Are they okay?
Yes, so I had a family in Syria that I knew about, but after the fall of the Assad regime, I figured out that I have more family members in Syria. And I started talking because I felt safe enough to start reaching out and talking. Once an evil dictatorship falls down, people start feeling freedom and maybe not afraid to speak. And one of them got killed in this fighting. Another got shot in the leg. Others are in the front line fighting, and I'm in touch with them and others in the front line. One stayed home. What happened in Syria, it's a crazy situation. I think people don't understand that.
Wasn't reported
Druze,
properly by the media, that's why.
no, they
Nobody
don't
did.
report, they don't talk about it, of course not. No Jews, no news. The media, for some reason, seems to be always trying to defend the bad guys and make the good guys look bad. And when
Yeah.
there's something that will make the bad guys look bad, they're silent. And it's consistent. It's like, you should give them the credit. They're very, very consistent in that. So the Druze in Syria, what happened is a man or a young man would leave the house with a weapon to fight in the front, and they would leave the younger boy in the house to defend his mother and his children. And a Druze father will come to his kid, and I've heard these statements, and tell him, boy, you just became a man today. And we'll give him a shotgun or even a kitchen knife and tell him, I promise I'm going to come back, but if I don't, you don't let your mother and sister fall to the hands of these monsters. And now, this kid, at the age of 12, 13, is sitting there. And I've been in touch with these kids. I've been in touch with these families. And the last time that I spoke to one of them, I used to send the WhatsApp and you see the V mark, he read it, he didn't read it. And the last one I sent, there's only one V mark. So
Oh.
for more than 48 hours, I haven't heard from them. So I really hope they're
Yeah.
fine.
the things on a personal level, obviously we're kind of reporting in news and everything, but on a personal level, I had the same kind of uncertain feeling when a few weeks back Iran was happening, and my father is in Tehran and is stuck, is held by the IRGC, and there for like 3-4 days. I lost contact. I was like, oh, okay, I don't know what's going on anymore.
My God.
It was quite rough. Considering that my dad, obviously, like many other Iranians in Iran, they were celebrating, saying, come on, IDF, hit them. But obviously, they also knew that they could become collateral damage. But they were still very brave. They were still saying, well, we have to take a risk. We've got nothing to lose. We are already dying under this regime. It can't get any worse than this anyway. So it was a chaotic situation. I'm just going to quickly, for those who missed the report earlier, obviously the military headquarters was hit, the building, essentially the defense ministry in Damascus. Yeah, I'm going to show the people who missed it. But the reason I'm going to show that is because straight after that, there was an announcement by al-Jawlani's government. Let's quickly go back to that moment. Crazy. So this happened, and you were going to say something. Yeah, I mean, obviously you were also busy doing your videos and everything else throughout the day. When what we heard was the al-Jawlani's government announced that they are now going to be reintegrating the southwest of Syria into the rest of the Syrian state. And some of the Druze were like, yeah, sure. But then obviously one by one, the leaders came out, the Druze leaders saying no. A lot of people got excited at first. So what is your assessment of the situation? I'm guessing that most of the people are not going to take a gamble and say, yeah, we trust al-Jawlani. Yeah, let's go be part of the rest of Syria, right?
No, they're terrified from that. Actually, when I saw that video, I saw a different video. What you showed, there was a reporter, a female.
Oh yeah, I showed that as well. Yeah, I'm going to bring that up again. Yeah, while you talk.
It's hilarious. And she was saying this. She was saying Israel cuts, and just when she said that, BAM! The building exploded. I thought, like, I don't know who did that timing, the Mossad or something. That was like perfect timing, waiting for her to say, Minister of Defense Israel cuts, kaboom! The whole mountain blew up, the whole building.
Reminding me of what happened to Iran a few weeks back. Let's just quickly do a reminder in case you guys missed that moment. Watch this. So yeah,
that's inside of Damascus. That is Israel sending a clear message. That escalated really fast. Sending clear. There is talk right now. I heard politicians in Israel saying that Israel should actually take down al-Jawlani.
Yeah, it's hard though. And okay, this is the thing. You got experience in the IDF. It's absolutely impressive how the state of Israel, which is smaller than my living room, and even in terms of the number of armed forces compared to other countries like the US, the level of multitasking we are seeing from Israel over the last year and a half, they're dealing with so many enemies at the same time. And they're not just like batting him away. In Iran, they almost brought down the regime. And basically, in reality, they are bringing it down. They just step back. And allegedly, Mossad operatives and others are still continuing their operation in Iran. And in Syria, within half an hour, they did all this. What is your assessment? How can the IDF be this good at multitasking? Is it some sort of Jewish thing?
I think the state of Israel is actually a female. You know, the way that they're handling multitasking. There's no man, doesn't matter what Mossad agent you are, that can do such multitasking. They're fighting a war in 7 fronts. They're fighting Iran, which is the biggest, enemy of Israel right now. And they managed to, in like several hours, to flip them on their back and start slapping them. I used to laugh. Like there was one guy in Iran. Give me an Iranian name, like a common Iranian name of a guy.
Mansour. It's actually also Iranian.
Okay, fair enough. There's one guy named Mansour in Iran sitting with a hand over a button, just a red button, ready to launch 10,000 missiles into Israel, and a phone duct taped to his head. And he's just waiting for the command. And then Israel goes and takes 30 of his commanders out. I don't know what to do. Waiting. And then out of nowhere, the Mossad agent starts going in the streets, taking them down. And the whole regime was brought to his knees in like seconds. That was like impressive. And people need to understand, I talked about multitasking. Israel
Yeah.
have no need to get involved in another war. They're right now
No.
dealing with like 7 fronts.
Yeah.
And to add into that, the Druze in Syria are not citizens of Israel. They're a minority that are being slaughtered in an enemy country, citizens of an enemy country that the regime is killing. But the fact that Israel is going out of its way, also after 600 and something days of fighting, their soldiers are tired, their ammunition,
Yeah.
is getting low, and they still choose to go and follow up with a promise that they made for the Druze, which is we're going to protect you. We're not going to let anyone come and slaughter you. And surprisingly, the media is not talking about that as well. This is
No.
very, very honorable. I'm so proud of my country, of the IDF, of the Air Force for actually doing that.
Yes, well, on the issue of obviously Israel, as we mentioned earlier, the Druze Israelis, some of them have kicked off and they've been trying to, some of them have crossed the border. I'm going to put their live feed and I'm going to get your perspective on this. This is the live footage from the Israeli Syrian border. Some of them have crossed the border. Of course, officially speaking, the Israeli government are saying, don't do this, go back home, it's not safe. What is your assessment, kind of objectively speaking, both from a perspective of those Druze who are doing this because they're angry, and of course also on behalf of the Israeli government that they have a point, right? So, what do you say about what's going on?
From a professional perspective, as a former IDF officer and someone who was behind enemy lines, special forces, and etc., this is a very bad idea because not only that they're putting their life at risk, but they're also right now making it maybe harder for the IDF, who's going to try to differentiate who is who, and who won't know, and he might actually get stuck in harm's way. So that's not a good idea, and it's not recommended. But people need to understand the context here. When the military of Syria with the jihadists went into the Druze mountain and they started slaughtering families and women and children, there's reports of entire families of 50 to 70 people just killed in one go, sitting in their garden or prayer house, and just women and children slaughtered. And then when the jihadists, they sent a recording, an audio recording. I posted it on my Instagram page because I translated it to English and to Hebrew from Arabic. They're basically addressing the soldiers, not only the jihadists, and they're saying, please stop recording on your phones. We've done that mistake when we slaughtered the Christians and it backfired at us. Kill them, shave their beards, humiliate them, cut their throats. Do not put it on your phone. And then later on, they said, and further, start using human shields. The Israeli Air Force is targeting us. So instead of being in the open, big numbers, go into the houses and take the families as human shields, slaughter them, and then move to the next house and to the next house and hide your military tanks and everything between civilian areas. So that audio recording that came out with the massive push of tanks and artillery inside of the villages made the Druze realize in Israel that if the Druze men fall down on that mountain, we're talking about October 7 on steroids. There's not whoever stopped the October 7 massacre in Israel was the IDF. The civilians held the line, special forces went in quickly and fought, few against many, and then the IDF came and stopped, and the damage was contained. In Syria, if the Druze men fall, there's no army to defend them. The army is the one to kill them. So there's about maybe 600, 500,000 Druze in that mountain. We're talking about a possible ethnic cleansing of all of
Yeah.
them. Because the commands right now, I mean, if you don't mind that I read you something that was sent to a
Yeah.
friend of mine. She's a Druze girl from Israel by the name of Julia, and she was talking to a mother in Syria, a Druze mother. And it breaks my heart, reading it. It's very difficult, but I think it's important. So here we go. A mother from Sweden just called me, and I'm beyond shattered. Hearing her voice and the gunfire in the background, she's alone with her gun because her son went to fight. And she's telling me that terrorists and Bedouins with them are in her neighborhood, barging into people's houses and executing them without even robbing the houses or anything, just killing them on the spot and moving to the next house. It's a terrible situation here. And then she added, the National Hospital in Sweden has just fallen too. Now, to put some perspective, up until now, these jihadists, Syria have
Yeah.
become the Mad Max of jihadists. Just a lot of factions of jihadists that
Yeah.
are going to
Worse
that
than
country from
Iraq.
all over.
Yeah, worse than Iraq and Libya. Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah. These people, they're not accountants, they're not dentists, they don't have a bank, they don't have SP 500. That's how they make a living. They're taking basically an example from the days of the prophets and his warlords. They raid,
Yeah.
they kill the men, they take the women, and they
Yeah.
steal the money, and then they do another raid, and then they get more fires, more Toyotas and stuff. So up until now, they were killing, but they were spending a lot of time looting the houses that they kill. But now they realize that they're probably going to die soon. So they want to expedite the killing. They're not looting anymore. They're just going house by house and killing. So when the Druze in Israel heard that, they
Right.
felt that airstrikes is not enough. And that's when they
Yeah.
jumped over the fence and start running in hundreds and thousands. And I've actually seen a video of a Druze Israeli with a Druze Syrian putting an Israeli flag
I saw.
in
Yeah. Yeah.
Syria, in Sweden.
Well, but I know that obviously some Israelis in Israel could be armed. They might have, they have guns. Do you know if any of these people that I'm showing you on the screen crossing the border, are they taking their guns? Do you think? That's crazy.
I think I've heard that several of them managed to take their guns as well
Oh
with
my
them.
God.
Yeah, it's crazy. The Druze in Israel are very, very trained. Many of them are in the armed forces. Many of them are special forces officers. So they can bring a lot of military knowledge to their hands. But in general, they're just also very. When you live under Islam for 1,000 years and you manage
Yeah.
to survive as a religion that is not Islam, then you need to be very smart and very brave and know when diplomacy is needed and when might and force is needed. I think the Druze are a very good example. They survived under Islam for 1,000 years.
Yes, I agree. Let's quickly get, while we're here, some reaction from the live chats, because a lot of people on this channel have been saying, bring Mansour on. We finally did, obviously. We got super chat here
Thank you,
saying,
guys.
I didn't know anything about the Druze before the 7th of October. So, hi, thanks for the insight. Best wishes from a British Hindu atheist. So that's
Wow.
nice. That's lovely. There is a quickly go to the members of 2CTV as well. Let's see what these guys are talking about. All right. Susie says, what's that big news? Oh yes, I just heard this before we went live. The United Nations entire commission of inquiry against Israel has now resigned in fear of U.S. sanctions. So some of the rhetoric from the White House has actually worked. We got Deb saying, we all hope that the regime falls. We just want the Druze Israel to have a better, more peaceful life. The thing is, question, when Assad was in charge, actually towards the end, a lot of us basically assumed that, well, it's almost impossible to get rid of him. You had a chance 10 years ago, 13 years ago. But the other problem with that was we were like, okay, even if Assad goes, because he's in charge now, that's definitely going to create a vacuum. So this time, vacuum wasn't created, but was created. So technically, it wasn't because al-Jawlani took over with the help of Erdogan. But around the country, there's a vacuum. So it seems like my opinion is, if somehow regime changes again and you push for it, actually might be, because you've gone through the transition, you kind of warmed up, and there might actually be an opportunity for some better people in Syria to actually start leading a transition and actually having a proper election and everything else, compared to when Assad was in charge, decades and decades of same tyrannical government. Now a bit of chaos might wake some people up in Syria, right? Or not? Do you have no hope? Oh, sorry, I lost you. Hang on. What's... Hang on.
I muted
Oh,
myself. Sorry.
You missed yourself. I was...
Yeah, I was being very respectful, so sorry. So I'm the only speaker that mutes himself. So there's a problem with that theory. The problem is that in the Middle East, in the Arab world, power and respect is the main way of negotiation. And when you don't show power and respect, they take advantage of you and they basically kill you.
Sure.
So Israel showing power now and the West showing power might calm things down out of fear, but not necessarily for the long run. And that is a big problem because Jolani is not alone. He took the government with the help of many, many jihadists, and there's many, many Syrians that support that.
And Erdogan, a foreign government,
And
helped
Erdogan.
him.
And I think I've asked, I want to ask you that question because I've met one time a very impressive Iranian Jewish Kurdish musician.
Oh,
girl.
wow. Ticks all the
Germany.
boxes.
Yeah. Every box
Is he on a wheelchair as well? Is he on a wheelchair? Go on.
When she, yeah, exactly. And when she came, she approached me because I was invited in a synagogue to speak, and when she was dressed very kind of, hipsterish, and I thought like, oh, another woke person who's gonna come and start arguing with me without knowing what he's talking about. And she immediately came and identified herself. I'm not gonna say the name. She said, "Hello, my name is," and I'm an Islamophobe. And I was like, "What?" She says, "I am so fed up of
That's what I
people
always
don't
say.
understand." Yeah, I'm an Islamophobe, and I said clearly, like, "Wow." And I was looking at her, and she has still a family in Iran, and I told myself, it took one generation to radicalize completely Palestine and Gaza. One generation, UNRWA,
Yeah.
and then all of them just want to kill the Jews, or many of them. It took like 2, 3 generations to radicalize Lebanon, but they're quite radicalized, but not.
Yeah.
Iranian are even more under that oppressive regime, and also the
Yeah.
head. How are
Yeah.
the Iranian people are still not full on radicalized if they control the education
But
system?
in fact, they went the other way around more. So compared to, for example, in the 1980s, after a few years of the Islamic Republic, um, even compared to that point, it's like they've gone even more anti, obviously Islam and more pro-Iran. I think the theory about that is, I could make it simplified. It'd be like, well, obviously Iran and the Persian culture back in the day had a rich heritage, compared to, with all the respect to people from like Syria or Iraq right now. They did have some sort of history way before, but not under the current form as their countries, obviously. Like Jordan, the same thing. And there could be a vacuum in those countries, but it's not that simplified. It's not just about that rich heritage. I think it was all
Yeah.
about the implementation of the Islamic Republic, because when they came in, they pushed too hard, too fast, because about 100 years before, the previous royal family, who were basically Azaris, they were technically Turkish Iranians, the
Yeah.
Qajar, before the Pahlavis. They brought cultural Islam, nothing oppressive or anything, just cultural Islam. A lot of people, depending on where in Iran, just or Persia at the time, started wearing headscarves, not by force, just culturally Islamic. But then obviously that changed. That the Pahlavi came and Reza Pahlavi came, and things kind of modernized. So even though they already had a bit of cultural Islam in them, I think the implementation of the Islamic Republic pushed it so much and so weirdly that I was a kid in Iran and in school. It wasn't the fact that my mom and my dad or anybody should have told me, by the way, the regime is bad. They didn't have to tell us. The way they were teaching Islam, the way they were teaching their propaganda about the regime was so off-putting, was so cringy, even to kids. They pushed us away even more. Obviously, my family were not Islamic or anything like that, but even some of the cultural Islamic families, they even got put off. Like, well, this is mental. So I think, yeah, it was just the incompetence of the Islamic Republic, and
Yeah,
also the
because
Iranians. Yeah, sorry, the
yeah,
Iranians are
you
not
see so many
collectivists. Yeah, go on.
you see so many girls in Iran that are still defiant, still standing, and still daring to take the hijab off, and then they
Yeah.
get a terrible face. So they see such a strong and brave defiance from the people under tyranny for so long that it just have to be impressive. And
It's
I
the
think
fact that the Iranian culture are not collectivist. That's what they are closer to. For example, the British don't see themselves as European. They say they're British. The Iranians don't see themselves as Asian. They say we're Persian. Or even Americans, in terms of the American individualistic mentality. Whereas, for example, places like China were able to be brainwashed eventually by Chairman Mao when it comes to communism, which is also collectivism. Islam and Marxism both are collectivist ideologies. If you genetically or whatever tribally in your nation have that capacity, you could get taken over. The British never became communist. The Iranians, even though they were actually invaded by the Soviet Union, never became communist. It's the same you could say about a lot of other countries now. Israel. When you go to Tel Aviv, every time I go, I talk to people who are, some could be religious, most are secular. They are not. They don't know. They're pro-family. I mean, not maybe the young people, but they are not collectivist, and that's the key point.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, I guess that's a good answer. I've heard a joke from an Iranian guy that said that the Mossad have more agents in Iran than in Israel. And
That's true.
I was laughing because that's probably very true. But I would even add that I would say the same thing is probably happening in Syria right now. Because when an evil regime collapses and there's so much frustration. So that's why it's not a good idea for Jawlani and for these
Yeah.
jihadists to start a fight with Israel. Actually, Syria right now is on the bottom of the food chain when it comes from a military perspective. I'm talking right
Yes. Yes.
now, former officer, military perspective, and in the bottom of the food chain in the Middle East, way, way in the bottom. They
Yeah.
like to play strong and brave when they're going and shooting innocent little girls and kidnapping and murdering their mothers. But if they face a real army, they're in big, big trouble. And I think if Israel choose, and we might actually hear that, not official statement from Israel, but if Israel choose, alas, Jolani is enough with him, he'll be gone. He'll be
Yeah.
gone, and
If
anyone after him. You saw with Iran or with Hezbollah. Remember with Nasrallah, he went down. The next one dish down. The next one dish down. The
yeah.
third one was coming with like full of sweats. Like, no, I don't want to be elected.
Well,
Boom.
with Iran, if they had stayed another half an hour in Iran, they would have won anyway. It was over. It
Yeah,
was
but
basically done.
literally one by one,
But
bam, 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 bam.
but the joke you mentioned about the Mossad in Iran, the other thing again, this one I don't have evidence, but it's just my instinct would say, when you have your foreign spies and agents in other countries, whether you're CIA, MI6, or Mossad or FSB, especially in the modern world, you kind of tend to, in order to make somebody your asset, to kind of basically get them to do things for you, as an Iranian, part of the IRGC, technically the default position is you go and find something on them, you bribe, you blackmail them or whatever. That's the tactic. But my instinct says, and I've met enough Iranians even like now to will talk to them, I can tell you without evidence that a lot of the Iranian regime assets who are helping Mossad, not all of them have been blackmailed. They voluntarily decided to join for a number of reasons. So I think that made it harder for the IRGC to keep an eye on people.
Of course, when you're such an evil, oppressive regime, fixated on oppressing your people and keeping them poor and miserable, you have like every chance possible to make that country
Yeah.
good, and you keep just doing everything you can just to build weapons of mass destruction and oppressing your women and children. Then yeah, there's going to be a lot of, especially when
Yeah.
they're intelligent people, there'll be a lot
Yeah.
of frustration there. It becomes a
Yeah.
breeding ground for spies.
Yes, and there's a comment saying, and no such thing as an Islamophobe, fear is rational, which goes back to the joke you made earlier about, oh, hi, I'm an Islamophobe. I did this in London. I posted on social media. My clarification was, it says Islam, so I'm against Islam as an idea, as an ideology, and it's not irrational, but if you want to call me Islamophobe, I am. Then I had the police in London knocking on my door. Because in the UK you're not allowed to say that. In the land of the land of hope and glory, the police had to knock on my door, but in a very bureaucratic way. They're like, well, we have to address this because someone complained, and I was like, so okay, what's the issue? They're like, can you clarify what you meant by that? The police didn't want to do it. The police were like, oh, we're going to have to do this now. But they have to. So I had to say, they were like, so when you say Islamophobe, do you mean you're against Islam or random Muslims? It's like, no, just Islam. They're like, okay, have a good day. Bye. I was like,
Wow, just the fact that this is the situation. I mean, I've heard stories about that, but I didn't know how like they are.
It's weird. But the fact that it's so bureaucratic, they're like, oh, okay, have a good day. The other weird example I have, which is not the same problem, was when I went to the JFK airport in New York. There's this generic kind of line of questioning. Also, I've got a British passport, but it says born in Tehran. So they just had to ask bureaucratically at the border, have you ever been a member of a terrorist organization? They're like, who's going to say yes to that? So I said no, and they're like, have a good day. Who's going to say yes to that? Stupid question.
It's the same when you apply for the visa to the US, tick like boxes. And before we had the ISTA, and one of the boxes, have you ever dealt with child trafficking, with
Who's going to say yes?
Who in the world is going to say tick this out with child trafficker, pedophile, terrorist? Yeah, please let me in your country.
I was tempted to respond when they asked, have you been a member of a terrorist organization? I was like, recently or?
You mean last month? Or like
Defying terrorism.
Yeah.
Someone says, Mansour, can we bring all of them to Israel? Or are all the lands in Syria or Lebanon too critical to the Druze? The thing is, if you do that, in my opinion, you're just accepting defeat. You're like, it's basically selling out to Al-Jilani, right?
I tell you even what, I just saw something history in the making, guys. I just saw a video before we came on the show of Druze from Syria that actually entered Israel. So they ran away and entered Israel, and Druze from Israel that went there. So it seems like Israel is allowing even the rescue of Druze,
Yes. Yes.
from
Yes.
Syria, which is, groundbreaking. Imagine for so many generations, none of them was allowed to even speak about Israel. Now they're actually allowed to come. And mind you, these attacks by Jolani started very shortly after Israel have allowed the mashayikh, the religious leaders from Syria, to come into Israel to visit their holy site,
Yes.
the
Yes.
house
Yes.
of the Prophet Jethro. And after that, when they saw them hugging each other, and I think every time when you see that, the same thing with Hamas and Iran, they started the war with Israel when Israel was normalizing the relationship with Saudi Arabia and others, Abraham Accords. It seems to me that the radical Muslim Brotherhood movement, every time that they see a chance to make Israel, the Jews, and the peace-loving Arabs and Muslims look good, it scares them because they're going
Yes.
to
Of
make
course.
them look really bad, and then they attack. And
Yeah.
then they
Yeah.
attack, they charge, they try, they do crazy stuff because they're very terrified. That's why they hate the Druze, by the way, one of the reasons, because the Druze are a great example of coexistence. Some people have been writing in the comments here, what is the Druze? So in Israel, the Druze and the Jews have all rights and obligations. My mom is a very respected woman in a Jewish city. We have all rights and obligations. We have Druze doctors, ministers, judges, school teachers. Women are allowed to walk freely in the street. They're allowed to dress as they want. So it's making the pro-Palestine, anti-Israel, anti-West Muslims look really bad because they're trying to portray all the time the image that Israel is evil, Israel is bad, is an apartheid, and etc. But the Jews had the same starting point, like the Muslims, by the way. When Israel was started, my grandfather had the same offer on the table. When the state of Israel started,
Yeah.
the Muslims came and sent basically a memo to all the Muslims in the land: get out of the land, we're going to come slaughter all the Jews from the river to the sea, and then you can come back after 2 weeks and take their homes. The Jews got the
Yeah.
same memo, by the way. And my grandfather came and said, and many Jews says, no, I'm not slaughtering these people. I'm going to stay here. They're very kind. They're very respectful. Well, they stayed there. And then the war started. The Druze actually joined side with the Jews, and Israel won. And since then, the ones who tried to murder them and didn't succeed are coming and saying, yeah, they stole our home. But the Druze are living statement, no, we were living here too. We didn't try to murder them. Look at us.
No.
We're having great life. So that makes them look really bad, and that literally pops out this whole pro-Palestine thing.
Also, these people live in the past and they remember the Islamists, like we mentioned in the 40s and 50s with the Druze, when they didn't listen. Same as the Arab Muslims who stayed. One of the reasons that every time you see, for example, when the Palestinian terrorists get hold of an Israeli Arab, they torture them even more and they kill them even more horrifically because they
Yeah,
remember,
yeah,
they know you are a bigger traitor than the Jews because you stayed in Israel, just
yeah,
like the Druze.
yeah. You want to hear something crazy?
Yeah, always.
I've just heard before I came to the show that also ground forces are starting to enter Syria from Israel,
Yeah,
mostly commando units, special forces.
yeah, I heard
There's a
that. But
reason why they're going in.
it's gonna be interesting because obviously there is going to be a backlash diplomatically with Erdogan and all those idiots. But it seems like at this point they don't care. So I mean, I'm just gonna sit here and watch, see what happens in the next few hours. I think things are gonna escalate quickly, because you were talking about the Druze and obviously their mentality. There is another interesting comment. Someone who wants to find out more, saying, "I'm confused about how united the Druze actually are." How many want to fight versus or join Syria? So yeah, I mean, yeah, because people say the same about the Kurds. The Kurds, they're it different because it depends. The Iranian Kurds are different to the Iraqi
Yeah,
Kurds. The Turkish Kurds
yeah.
are different to Syrian Kurds. But the Druze, are they more unified? How does that work?
So the Druze in Syria are much more unified in terms of they would rather live under Israel. Undoubtedly, the majority of them would. Um, some of them are still very afraid, and I would say it's very similar to the Iranian people because they're fed up and tired of seeing the West coming and saying, we're going to save you, we're going to got your backs. And then they come out and say, yeah, thank you, West, come and save us. We love you, America. We love you, Israel. And then they're left alone because after a week or 2 or 3, someone calls for a ceasefire because of
Yeah.
some either Nobel Prize on the line or economic reasons. And then they're left with their pants down. And I think we saw the great example now with Iran. Like everybody from the Mossad to the special forces to the people of Israel were thinking, great, let's help them, take that regime down. But then the politicians decided to back out and left these people who came and exposed themselves basically, and the bad guys were taking names. So there's a lot of people in Syria, Druze, that are thinking the same. What will happen tomorrow? Now everybody's with us, everybody's talking, but tomorrow they're all going to back out because there's some kind of international pressure, and then we're left here with these jihadists and we die. So I think if you hear resistance, most of the resistance that you're going to hear is by literally people trying to play it safe, although I think it's too late now to play it safe.
I was going to say, because compared to a few weeks ago, a couple of months ago, when similar things happened in Sueda, I think it's a little bit too late. I don't think there could be any surrender, like from the Druze side. I think they will be slaughtered this time.
Oh yeah. I mean, the Jolani have revealed his cards. That's why there were parliament members in Israel that even called for his assassination. They came and said Israel should take him down.
I know.
Because he said,
that was crazy.
yeah, he said, Khalas, stop it with these jokes, guys. He's a jihadist. He's ISIS. He's Al Qaeda. What else do you need to believe it? He's not a partner. So I think now when he really sent his army, his tanks, all of them to a civilian minority village in Syria to slaughter them, and they did slaughter them, it's very hard to go back from that.
Yes,
I mean, how can you convince the world still?
Just quickly, a couple of more comments. King Penguin, miss you. What? Love you long time. I'm guessing are you Penguin? I don't know the joke. I was a member of the IDF, says God's best friend. Thanks for your service. Do you think Qatar is behind this, trying to prevent normalization? Well, Qatar and Turkey as well, because their normalization stuff freaks everybody out. Because some people were saying, is it Iran directly? I don't think it's Iran directly, because there are other players. The Qatar is actually quite interesting as a state, because they are very good at these sort of things, the manipulations. They're not very good at sending proxies. The IRGC is good at that. But what do you think?
The textbook. This is a textbook Qatar, and I even heard from some of my sources on the ground there in Syria that they said that there's a lot of drones being used against them, and this is something new. They didn't see the regime using these drones, and they're saying this is directly, we heard that Qatar have brought them and equipped them with these drones, and they're using them against the civilians. So undoubtedly, I would not be surprised if Qatar is very much behind this, because that serves their interest. Syria is a great real estate in the Middle East. Everybody wants into Syria right now, and everybody's seeing the chance. You're going to see Russia behind the scenes. You might see China behind the scenes. You're going to see Turkey,
China's everywhere.
Everyone, America, Israel, because not only that it gives a direct connection between Iran, let's say, to Israel, which is, by the way, people don't think about it. Remember when Israel took out the entire military air defense of Syria in like 2 days, the biggest airstrike in planet Earth almost? You need to understand, Syria was known, I grew up knowing that the biggest threat that Israel had for a while was Syria, and the biggest threat in Syria that they had the most amount of anti-aircraft missiles and guns on planet Earth per size, because they were so terrified of the Israeli Air Force. Now, think of Israel. They knew one day they're going to have to invade Iran. And they knew that they're going to have to refuel through that process. Iran is not like neighbor. It's very far. It's a very big country. So how difficult would have it been if we had Syria right now with their air defense? So when Syria fell down, Israel ticked the box. Challenge number one, take it out. Boom, took it all out. And further, in terms of minerals, land, and everything, it's known that Syria have a lot of potential. I've heard some really interesting reports, from coming from universities in the US, talking about the all kind of Silicon Valley interests that they have in mountains in Syria, including the Druze mountains. So I think there's a lot of players that want to take that place, and maybe that's one of the reasons that you have Donald Trump and others trying to somehow maybe normalize relationship with Jolani. He's my enemy, but it's better that the enemy is closer to me than in the hand of the enemies, So maybe they're trying to play that, but it comes on the expense of minorities.
They see him as a newbie, as an amateur enemy, and they think that it's better to kind of keep control of him now. It doesn't mean you have to trust him, but and I think right now Al Jolani is getting desperate, and he at this point he would literally agree to anything that Trump would say, for example, or Saudi Arabia, MBS would say. He would say, yes, sure, I just don't want to lose the palace. So, but I don't think it's in his control anymore. As you said, he's got a lot of people around him. He's not in charge in that sense. As a so-called dictator, he's no Assad, he's no Putin. He's new. He's still trying to find out, okay, where is the door? And all the others who propped him up to get in there, they have more control. Where is the button? What is this? Is that Coke? Allah is not Akbar. Oh no.
Exactly. Why didn't they open the ceiling? Kaboom, falls down.
Yeah, at some point, I won't be surprised if Al-Jilani starts doing this, because while all this is happening, let's not forget, God bless Israel. God bless the idea. Soon Al-Jilani is going to fly this. Please stop, please.
Yeah. I think Israel should take him down. That's my personal opinion. Don't wait. I think Israel should take Khomeini down, should take him down. I heard that the last head of the Mossad said that. He said, I recommended that Israel take him down. And he made a very clear kind of, argument. He said, he's a very evil person. Very evil. This is like the most evil as you can get. These people, you don't want them alive. They're evil to their own people, to anything. So I think the West can start understand who is your allies and who is your enemies, and stop defending the enemies. Let them leave the work on proving themselves to them.
I agree. It's insanity. An end times prophecy told by the prophet Isaiah, 750 BC. Damascus will become a heap of rubble. That's true, actually. Praying for Israel. The thing is, every time people bring up these prophecies, I'm like, okay, on the one hand, I think chaos has happened before in the Middle East, but I'm like, oh my God, it's becoming too detailed. Not now. Just go away. Not now. I'm not ready for the end of the world.
No, that was apocalypse.
Someone says, I'm so glad to see two of my favorite members of the new media broadcasting together. Hey, I'm praying for the safety of the Druze and for this story to finally be heard by the West. Well, a lot of people are watching this right now, so hopefully the message will get out there. And finally, someone says, Zoroastrian here. Ah, brilliant. They're lovely Zoroastrians. As a fellow Kafir, I must say, stay strong, Druze people. You will come out of this stronger and free from the cruelty of Islam. That's so interesting, because we forgot about the Zoroastrians, obviously the ancient Persian tribe religiously, because we talked about the Kurds and the Druze.
Yeah.
These guys also were slaughtered badly, Zoroastrians, and they are a very minority right now in Iran, but they still survive. They are survivors. It's
impressive how the man survived the Muslim colonizing genocidal attempt that was going in the Middle East for so many years.
Yes, absolutely. We're just getting breaking news that the reports of new clashes in Suwaida has now been reported, despite the so-called ceasefire announcement. What we'll be doing, we're going to take a quick break, and obviously thank you, Mansour, for coming on the show, and we'll get all the information for you guys and come back with all the live coverage of this internal chaotic conflict in Syria. Mansour, thank you again for coming on the channel. Any last few words?
Thank you so much for giving this channel. I just want to ask the people in the world, no one knows about the Druze. We're a very small minority, very peaceful one, and we need your help to spread this news. Right now, what's happening in Syria, they're cutting the internet on them, they're cutting the electricity, no water, no food, and there is a possible ethnic cleansing, a real one. And if you're a college student somewhere and you want to find something to fight for, and this is a good cause. The people of Iran is a good cause. There's so many good causes out there. Pro-Palestine is not a good cause. Muslim Brotherhood is not a good cause. Don't be tricked and fooled by these jihadists to believe that they're the victims. The only victims in the Middle East, the only ones who are not victims in the Middle East, let's call it that way, are the Muslims. They may be the victims for themselves, but anyone else is a victim for what they're doing to them. So please have that in mind and pick the right side. And thank you so much for letting us share this voice here. I appreciate that.
On that note, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching. I'm Maya Tusi, and we are the media.